What's going on YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys in the video. Today I'll be recapping the 2019 North American Nationals. So this is a big thing. It was a pretty crazy weekend, in fact, I would say. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. I know a lot of people have already talked about it, but I did have a lot of work over the weekend, so I kind of wanted to take some time, kind of let the memes and everything else kind of percolate and like give my personal thoughts on it. So first off, get the pie chart out of the way. This is the top cut. I think most of this is expected. Out of the top 64 breakdown, the people who made that top cut, it's almost a 25-25 pie chart. Half the top cut shots were different Orcust and Thunder Dragon variants. Then we had 22% were Salamangreat, 20% were Sky Striker. Others, as far as what the others were, there was I believe one zombie list, a couple of Pendulum decks getting the top cut, and a Mystic Mine burn deck. Yes, Mystic Mine has managed to get to the top cut of the Nationals. However, I don't really think this is something to worry about. We all know Mystic Mine exists. It's going to be a thing. And however, I think for decks like Mystic Mine it's really hard for them to succeed when they get to the top cut because everyone knows how to counter their deck. So when you get to have to play against better players, it's going to be harder to win. So we'll see. But anyways, overall, I think this is about a good indication of, we kind of knew that this is where the Yugioh is right now. This is the kind of where things are. Now, as far as the whole event over, so on the Friday before, they have basically like a tournament of some of the top players among the points rankings. If you're unfamiliar, basically you get a chance to go to Worlds if you're among the points. And this was kind of a separate tournament where people could punch a ticket to Worlds if they won a tournament amongst the best players. However, one of the biggest things was that slow playing. This is a theme throughout the weekend. Even some of the guys who are going to Worlds were accused of slow playing. It's something that is, the new time rules have even put this to a whole nother level in terms of this. If you're unfamiliar with what happened, this was in the points tournament on the Friday that I mentioned earlier. Basically, a guy was in the top cut match. He'd already been given a warning or two to stop, to play a little faster. It was with 3 minutes left in the clock, he started checking his side deck of all things and started rereading Salamangreat Sanctuary. And at that point, I think again the guy his opponent asked to play a little faster, was then given a game loss for the infraction. This is what Konami should be doing. However, the thing is, it's really kind of you have to understand as a player to ask your opponent to play a little faster. It's just something you're going to have to do. Now, if you're just playing fucking around at locals, it's not a big deal. But if you're just if you're trying to punch your ticket to Nationals, or you're trying to, in this case, punch your ticket to Worlds, you're going to have to kind of be a little less lenient, and you're going to have to make your opponent play faster. And this is what I think, to prevent things like this happening, as a player, you're going to have to ask your opponent to play faster. And there's no reason when you're in the points tournament like this among the top players that you should not know what your cards do. I mean, at our regional, judges will tell us we need to know what our cards do. So it's definitely, as far as who won the points tournament, it was actually Jesse Cotton with a really neat Sky Striker, pretty decked out with some text. He actually won with by overlaying 2 rays and searching double or nothing, doing a little Utopia combo. It's pretty neat. He also was playing Trap Trick in the main deck to search things like Metaverse and some of his side deck cards such as Sanctum and Full House. Really neat deck list. Another thing I noticed about his deck list, he was running Dingirsu in his extra deck. This was actually a popular tech over the whole weekend. Whether you were playing Mind Control or playing Sky Striker and playing Widow Anchor, taking your opponent's monster and overlaying it. If you're playing against Orcust, taking their Galatea, for example, and stacking and making your own Dingirsu forces early activations, which, because Dingirsu is non-targeting, it makes them activate their symbol early, which is not what they want to do. And when you can play into your opponent's field just break your opponent's field with just one card and just get rid of a lot of their resources, it's really, really good. And I'm always liking seeing innovation like this because at the end of the day, when you get to a top cut, you're going to have to do something different with your deck to give yourself a little bit of an edge. And I think that's one thing Jesse Cotton did in his punching his ticket to Worlds. As far as what won in the next 2 days, what won the whole thing? Well, Thunder Dragons. Thunder Dragons actually managing to win another event. So Dakota Engelhoff won all the nationals with his Danger Thunder Dragon variant. The interesting thing is that we see the full package of Crusadia in the deck. Crusadia is a pretty, I think, in particular, I think Reclusia, the level 3, is really good because it allows you to pop things and play into fields. It's a pretty consistent little engine. And I think an interesting thing I found about the list, he's playing both Eclipse of Wyvern and Omni Dragon Brotar. These are things people use to search the big dragons. It's one of the things that makes the deck so consistent, and it's interesting to see him playing both. As far as like what this means for the deck while winning nationals, well, the previous, outside of Hat, since 2013, every single deck that has won the North American Nationals has been hit on the ban list in some form. For example, last year, while Goki didn't lose Firewall, they lost Nightmare Goblin, and they were kind of power creeped, but Goblin was definitely hit, partially one of the big things they did end up losing. Then the previous year, in the previous year's Monarchs, True Draco Zoo lost Broad Bull, Trident, and the Draco cards got hit. Previous year Monarchs losing a ton of cards. Outside of Hat, every deck that has done well, won a Nationals, has been hit on the ban list. So Thunder Dragons is more, the numbers would say Thunder Dragons are going to get hit. It's going to be interesting to see what tactic Konami takes. As far as some of the other topping lists, we actually had 2 Sky Strikers out of the top 4. This was Manav Dawar's list. Some interesting ratios to say the least, but he did manage to make it all the way to the top cut. Pretty interesting little list, and it's always cool to Sky Striker's still a pretty good deck. I think it's proven, and even with one Kagari, it's proven that it's still good enough to have some success. Now, as far as like who is going to Worlds, who punched their ticket to Worlds, well, we have of course we have the Jesse Cotton we mentioned earlier. Gabriel Vargas is also going to Worlds as well. Pretty cool. Both these guys topped the point system as far as the top 4. Of course, the Dakota Engelhoff we mentioned earlier, Raymond Dai, Manav Dawar we mentioned earlier, and Wei Li. I'm sorry for butchering your names, guys, but these guys are going to Worlds after doing well at Nationals. So it's always it's gonna be interesting to see how they do, because typically the OCG has done well at pretty much every Worlds we've had over the past few years. I think part of that has to do with the OCG getting cards so much earlier than us. It gives them such an advantage, but I think this is a pretty good group of guys to go to a Worlds, and it's going to be interesting to see them take their shot. So to basically summarize the whole thing, I think we had a pretty darn cool Nationals this year. If it would have been unfortunate this year, it was way too far away for me to go, but it was cool to see, and I think we had some really cool decks running around and whatnot. So anyway, guys, that about comes to the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think of Nationals this year. Did you enjoy watching the stream? And were there any things you think that need to be changed? Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. It's Warstorm signing out.